Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with my co-host, Ike Eisenmann. And today we are thrilled to welcome one of the original hosts of Wheel of Fortune and the author of the fascinating memoir, Stop the Wheel, I Want to Get Off, Dr. Susan Stafford. Susan, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Ike. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
I read your book. Fascinating. Like I said there.
Some of it's even true, too.
I to start with, before we'll get to Wheel of Fortune, we'll get to a lot of the other things in there. To start on one of the few first pages, your grandfather was a musician and opened for Jack Benny, and your great grandfather worked with Samuel Clemens.
Exactly. How's that for yeah. I think that's why I love the spiritual side of living in this earth. We're only on earth for a while, we just occupy it for a while. But to have my one grandfather, Italian, had to change his name because of the Italian thing. And the other one couldn't get money at the church, so he worked because he was a preacher, Methodist, bishop actually. So he worked with Samuel after church in the print shop, Hamilton, Missouri. Yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. That just blew me away right over to start. It's like, this is in the first few pages. Imagine the rest of the book. So.
Yeah, and I don't even tell all, I'm a nice, sweet person most of the time.
So you grew up in Missouri, you won several pageants. So I wonder, is that led right off into an interest in modeling and acting right from the pageants?
Yeah, I'll tell you why, though. This is what's interesting. It's like your sister or Ike's wife or Ike's, whatever. The women really promoted me. She's cute. Let's put her in there. And they honestly, the wives, even Irwin Allen, the first time I got a job was through Mrs. Allen. She said to Irwin, you should put her in something. I thought, yeah, you should put me in something. Point being is that the women have been so behind me. I appreciate that.
Did you have an interest in it yourself, or just they pushed you?
No, I had one bathing suit. I didn't know you wore black bathing suits to walk. Are you kidding? I'm a farm girl. I mean, proud of it, actually. Don't know that I'd want to go back to it. You know what I mean?
But,
Yeah.
So you were in, I was reading the thing. So I want to hit certain points. I read that you were in an unhappy relationship in Missouri. And then that led to you packing it up and moving to California. I just wonder what was going through your mind. That's a tough, move to go at that time. Were you scared, nervous?
I think sometimes we're just stupid. You know what I mean? I think you think maybe you or I might know that when you're younger, you don't think that much about whatever. You just get on that train and go. I had a sister in Orange County. I drove my car to Orange County, stayed with her, took a bus in, and the rest is history. Yeah.
You were already modeling at this point in your life?
I had a model agency in Kansas City because you can't have a model agency in Kansas City. What can you have? Kansas City was great to me. And I learned a lot. I learned that I don't know much on the way, but I'm learning.
One of the things I found hysterical, by the way, it's one of your first commercials where you said that they asked you to surf and you had no idea how, and just like any actor, yeah, no problem.
I usually, I want to be clear about this. I usually don't lie, but I figured, what's so hard about surfing? It's not easy if you haven't done it before. And I lost my bikini top, and oh my goodness, it was pretty embarrassing actually.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Then the board came up and hit me in the face, and my sister Catherine said, "What happened to you?" But it's all part of living. I mean, it's like you guys do every day. I mean, we live by the seat of our pants. You know that.
What are some of the other commercials that you were in at the time? What are the
Let's see. My largest commercial was Eastman Kodak because they ran at prime time and you get 3 times more, as you know. That was my largest commercial, and I was able to get my mother home, which was great, and myself. And so, you know, the industry's been good to me. I see it changing right now a lot, but it has been good to me, really. Mm-hmm.
Your book is like a who's who of everyone of that
Yeah.
time.
You see, I could take credit for that, but I'm going to tell you and Ike both, I have been so blessed. I've met the biggest of the biggest. I've met the best of the best. I've met the lowest of the lowest. And you know what? It's a pretty good combination because at least you know the difference, you know?
Among the people it shows that you dated, Lee Majors, Anthony Hopkins, McLean Stevenson, Maximilian Schell, like, wow.
Yeah.
And you also other people that you had interactions with. I see Jack Lord, Evel Knievel, John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Rita Hayworth, among many, many others. But I want to hit, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say Rita Hayworth, I'd have to call her Miss Hayworth, wasn't like she was a friend, you know. And she had studied with Bob Paris. Nobody knows the name now, but Jim Brolin and all of us would go to this teacher. His name was Robert Graham Paris. And Rita Hayworth would go. And so when I gave a party, Mr. Graham brought Rita to the party. Well, none of us knew the word Alzheimer's at the time. None of us knew it. And I went to look for her, and she was in a closet. My heart hurt. My heart hurt. And that's when we found out that she didn't know where she was. And Mr. Graham had said to me, we got to watch Rita. Well, I didn't know what that meant. I thought maybe it was drinking or something, you know, like in my case. But anyway, that's the first time we heard of the word Alzheimer's. I was living at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel at the time. And it was frightening. And it's also hard to see somebody that you look up to, you know, have a problem at all, anybody. So, and that's my Rita story, but I have a lot of stories about all of them. And, you know, they're all fine stories, a little touchy on some, but, you know, one of those people, just so you know, one of those people came to pick me up at home for lunch, and my dog ran over and got on him. And he said, oh, I don't like dogs. I said, well, then we're not having lunch.
Good for you. That's a big character sign.
Yeah. You don't like my dog? Forget about it.
There was Maximilian Schell, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And John Wayne, you were very complimentary of John Wayne. He was very friendly with you?
Oh, well, he was friendly before he knew I had people that were friendly. Does that make sense? Before I got Will, I was out at USC. Somebody asked me if I would help volunteer for, you know, one of the things. And I was out there batting the ball and everything. And he was on the Trojan horse, and he came over and he said, hey, little girl, how are you? Or something like that. And I said, oh, I'm just fine, you know, not knowing. And then, of course, a year later, I was on the Wild Goose for a month with Duke. And at that time, my husband-to-be, Gordon McClendon, and people would fly in and we'd play cards. You know, it's like, hey, this is so cool. And a lot of drinking and homemade dishes from the cooks. And then we'd go back into Canada, and he would take pies and feed the deaf mutes back in the woods. So there's a lot about John Wayne people did not know, like he's real, like real, you know. Anyway, it was a treat. And I think I was in my 20s when that picture was taken. And he was cool. His sons are cool. Michael passed, you know, but Patrick's running the company now. So yay, Patrick.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned Gordon McClendon. I mean, you were married to him. He was a very famous radio personality. So you moved to Texas. And again, I see he gave you your own radio show, and you interviewed tons of celebrities. I mean, any that stick out for you? I see many here. I mean, Richard Chamberlain, Rosie Greer, Richard Harris, Sid Caesar. Any that stick out for you? Any stories that you remember that interested you then?
Howard Cosell sticks out a lot. Howard Cosell was bigger than life. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I had quite a few. Sal Mineo was interesting. And they still haven't found out how he was murdered, who murdered him, right? Still. But if you take, I don't have the list in front of me. I wasn't that prepared today, but I will tell you that it's my humble opinion that I don't know about today's celebrities because of what's going on, but I do know that celebrities by and large are very grateful to be where they are and have what they have, you know?
Well, I read that you still have all the tapes of all the shows that you used to do.
Yeah, do you want to make a deal?
Why did you ever plan on releasing them? Why don't you?
Well, interesting. You should say that because I talked to Bart McClendon, that's Gordon's son, and I said, I'd like to do something with all these shows.
Sure.
Interesting you mentioned that. And I said a coffee table or the nephew or grandson of or something. So you know me, you don't know me, but I just put it in prayer because that's what I do. I put it in prayer. And I'm looking for a vehicle where somebody might want to take those shows. I don't know what to do with them. See, technology's way ahead of me, and that's why I'm kind of stuck with. I don't know what to do. Let me know if you think of something, Jonathan.
Oh, there are many things you could probably do with them. Or you could release a book with that as well. Putting them all into like transcribing or taking like highlights or putting them on YouTube as well.
Well, why don't you help me do that? Let's make a deal on it.
And we'll talk after. Yes.
Sure, of course.
I love it. We're doing business here at the same time we're entertaining. Right. I love it.
Hey, isn't it always that case? It's always the case.
Yeah.
Well, you were married to now. This is another thing. I found so many things in your book fascinating. Gordon had a lot of interactions with LBJ. You talked about that you didn't trust him at all, and you went into the part of the conspiracy. Now, is that something that you guys believed in?
Oh, absolutely.
You do.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he himself was responsible, but there's no doubt in my mind, that Jack Ruby was set up, that Oswald was a lone shooter with tons of conspiracies. We could do a whole show on this if you want, Jonathan. I am very opinionated about it.
What was it about LBJ that you didn't trust? I mean,
there was a little article, and I think it was in Hollywood Parade, maybe not Scott's issue, because I wrote for the Los Angeles Times for a while. But there was a quote in the paper that he said at the hospital, "Is the son of a bitch dead yet?" Quote unquote. That kind of turned me a little bit, but he didn't like Bobby and he didn't like the Kennedys. And that goes back to a lot of politics. That was my first vote. I voted for JFK. I was so proud of myself. But I'm sure I voted for him because he's good looking. I didn't know anything. At 18, what do I know? I was good looking, but I came from Truman's area and we really thought the world of President Truman. In fact, when he died, he waited to the day after Christmas so it wouldn't ruin the people from Missouri. Sweet.
So I'll move on. Just like I said, that was incredible to me. I'll move on to Wheel of Fortune. So you had a connection with Merv Griffin ahead of time?
I had a connection?
You were friendly with Merv Griffin before Wheel of Fortune?
I was friendly with Murray Schwartz.
Murray Schwartz, okay.
Murray Schwartz got me the position. And then he'll never believe it, but there was a lady at NBC and I thought it had to okay her for me to get the position, but apparently not. Murray introduced me to Merv and to Lynn. And, it was really terrific because we're the first, talk about women's movement, okay? I was the first to get a microphone for women.
Right.
It was 3 times more money. First to make my clothing deal. I did make a mistake there. I made several in my life. By the way, I'm sure you haven't made any. but the clothing deal, I kept looking at Alex and everybody. I thought, how do these guys get the clothing deal? And I said something to one of the Merv or something. I said, how is it you all have clothing deal and we don't? Well, he said, we can work on that. So I got with what's that very Giorgio's. That was a mistake because my fans in the Bible Belt area couldn't afford Giorgio's. They loved the dress, but they couldn't afford it. Bingo, left that immediately and got a Celesta Niesta material that you can wash and hang and travel in, because that they could afford. So, that was rude of me to not think of it, but they were letting me wear it. And I never thought about, that happening, but indeed it did. And then we started Celesta Niesta, which is a fabric they use on this Chico company. And I didn't make a deal like for me, I made a deal just for the clothing to wear on the show.
Yeah.
So I was proud of that. I was proud of that. Mm-hmm.
Was this a whole big, or did you have to audition? I mean, was this a process, or they would just had you in mind right away?
Oh, let me tell you, this is cute. No, a couple girls. And then we had a fella by the name of Cookie from 77 Sunset Strip.
Right. Okay.
And he auditioned, and we did the pilot initially together.
So you and Ed Burns together?
Ed Burns, right. Good, Jonathan. That's good. And they showed it at the Academy, the Screen Academy, and then people vote, you see. We just lost Ed last year, by the way. Nice man, really nice man. But we didn't click because at that time he was a little chauvinistic. And women that were voting, and women again, see, those girls come through for me. And they thought he was a little chauvinistic. So they brought in this guy from Kentucky by the name of Chuck Woolery. And so, and Chuck and I were like glue. We just worked. We worked together. It was cool, no problem. And we started going to different cities. We were the first game show to start doing that. And it was really, really good until Chuck thought he should get more money.
Pause for the long drink.
So that was
a semblance of acting there, Ike.
Oh, thank you. No, it was a beautiful moment. I just wanted to comment on it.
Okay, so Merv said, Chuck basically said, God said that I'm to get more money. And you understand, I love Chuck. I didn't want Chuck to leave, but I wanted Chuck to get the best deal he could, And Merv said, it's funny, God didn't tell me that you're supposed to have more money. So that was the interchange there.
wow.
And then there was a man there that was doing the weather. His name was Pat Sajak, and he was doing weather at NBC, and he was under contract. So voila, we put Pat in there. In between that, I worked with Alex and several other people, to keep the show humming. But I miss Chuck. I think Pat does a good job. But there's something about country. There's something about country, kind of gets down. But Pat was good. Pat's good. He's a good guy.
When Chuck,
and Dan is good. They're both good,
When Chuck Woolery is holding out for more money, so he was the original host with you. You hit it off with Chuck right away? Everything?
Oh, right away. Mm-hmm. Country.
Right. But so when Chuck is holding out for more money, you're on a successful show. What's going through your mind? Are you worried about that the show, this is going to kill the show at all?
Doesn't bother me a bit, Jonathan, because I didn't have it before. Worse as I could lose it. I was doing co-star Rose at Universal and Fox and everything, and I missed doing that because you do 15 shows a week. You hardly have time to go out and do a role, So I was really, for 7 years, as I said on the Oprah show, I turned letters, and grateful to have it. Grateful. Please don't misunderstand. But within this this Catholic priest got a hold of me and said, well, what do you do in hiatus? And I said, what's hiatus? He said, when you're not working, vacation time. I said, I go see my folks. He said, well, I want you to go to India and help me with the leopards over there. I said, me? What are you, crazy? This is where I started. And anyway, short story, I went and it changed my life. It changed my life because I was doing something significantly different. And it made me happy. And so when I came back, I had a contract to negotiate. Milton Sushin, who I think the world of Milton, he's my manager. And
that's who I was contacting originally, Milton.
Oh, he's just fabulous. He's such a mensch. And he said, if you leave, Susan, you're never going to come back. And I said, I don't particularly want to come back. I think it's time for me to go on. I have what we call a calling. Okay. I had a calling, and it's not a calling I would pick. Trust me. Would I leave the money for nighttime, 3 times? No, but I did because something a little larger than that was happening. And so anyway, I broke in this little girl by the name of Vanna White. Yeah. Yeah.
At the time, you get, from what I read, you were one of the highest paid people in game shows then, right? At this time?
Oh, yes. Betty White, just met Ruta Lee was doing high rollers. I was doing wheel, and there was one other girl, but she wasn't talking. See, nobody was talking. So it's a real, it's real grace. It is grace. Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think back, like, what if you stayed, or you don't have those regrets?
Oh, that'd be stupid for me to say that, Jonathan. I miss the money, but the ride has been, listen, I got to go overseas and shoot with former Surgeon General Koop, the cure for leprosy. Come on now. Mm-hmm. The cure for leprosy. I got to work with Rock Hudson when AIDS hit, and I ran over with Pat and Shirley Boone.
We're going to ask you about that as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't have this opportunity of working with my friends who have AIDS and working with Surgeon General Koop of the United States. Don't you see what I'm saying? The job was wonderful. I'm grateful for Wheel. So grateful. But you got to move on sometimes. And the satisfaction I've had since the move has been endless. I got my doctorate. Really working on things, and I'm grateful. Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the craziest stories from your time working on Wheel of Fortune?
Well, to tell you the truth, and that's what you want, is the truth. Somewhere between Chevy Chase falling down the aisle when he was a page, maybe, because he falls like nobody else. And of course, when I married Dick Ebersol, he threw me in the ocean. Chevy did. That's what you do when somebody's getting ready to throw him in the ocean. I know I'm jumping here, but Belushi, I have to tell you Belushi's story. It's just so good. And I don't tell good stories. I have people that really tell good stories.
I was going to ask you about Belushi as well. So yes.
Yeah, Belushi, God bless him. So Belushi's at the wedding, and we did it at Burt Sugarman's home.
When you married Ebersol.
Right. And so Dick said to me, "Would you want Carol Wayne to stand up for you?" And I said, "Sure." It wasn't like this deep relationship. It was, sure. Did you want Ike to come and give you away? Sure. So Belushi sees this wonderful, sweet lady sitting over there. Her name is Joni. And he proceeds to put the move on her. And that's the preacher's wife, who is as innocent as the day is long, and as sweet as you can imagine. And she handled it so beautifully. But he said, "Hey, honey, Joni just looked at us. Oh, you're so sweet. You're so funny," because she had no idea that he was serious. Anyway, there's lots of stories, lots of stories. I think, do you remember Sammy Kahn, or are you too young?
I know of Sammy Kahn.
Yeah. Sammy comes in. I have 2 crosses in the ocean there at Bert Sugarman's home in Malibu. 2 crosses. And Sammy Kahn says, I always wanted to know where Abbott and Costello were buried. I mean, you're talking about, you know, and of course I had to get married in 18 days because I was a religious nut, you know. It's so, don't like to look back that much, but anyway, that's how you learn. That's how you learn. Well, Dick's done very well for himself, as you can see.
Well, I'll go back. I'm jumping. Since you're jumping around, I'm going to jump around as well. I want to just go back there. When Pat Sajak came on the show, did you feel the same chemistry at all as with Chuck Woolery, or no?
No, of course not. 2 different human beings.
So it was just it's nothing that about him that made you want to go at all. I mean, just you.
Well, the most important thing is that I'm professional, and I want to make you as comfortable as possible because you're new on the job, and that's my job, to make you comfortable. And Pat even wrote to me, I think I put it in my book, nothing like coming to work and being complimented and lifted, you know, because that's what you do for each other. That's what we're supposed to do anyway. So, you know, but Pat's a nice man. Yeah.
Has the show asked you to come back to make an appearance at all ever, or no?
Well, when Vanna's boyfriend was killed, John, you know, in the plane in Palm Springs, I was dancing on a piano at Murphy's St. Patrick there at Jimmy's. And they asked me to go back. This is interesting. Do I tell it, I wonder? Yeah, I will. I will. So I go back, and they put me, you know, as you get dressed during the week, Monday, you dress one way. By Wednesday, you dress another way. By Friday, you got a little cleavage, maybe, you know, it's Friday weekend. That's what they do on television. They dress you for the day of the week. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, because Monday, you don't want to come out with a little cleavage. That's Monday. We're working on Monday, you know, so they dress psychologically, you know, for each day. Well, they kept on giving me these daddy dresses. That week I did. And I turned to the fashion designer and I said, what is it with these daddy? Where's my, well, see, they didn't want me to look that good. Got it?
Yep.
Yeah. It took me about 4 shows in to figure it out.
How about recently? Have they talked to you about appearing like on anniversary shows at all?
No, I think that would be letting people know that I had been there. And see, the focus is on the now, not the past. Most of the calls that I get, which are quite a few, and the fan mail, I'm surprised. It's been so long, and fan mail keeps coming in. And I said, oh, these people don't have anything else to do. What is that about? So it's kind of educational for me.
You said Lucille Ball came in to compliment you on.
Oh, Lucille Ball, what a trip. So she comes in, knocks at my door, and I have a do not disturb. I mean, I've got an hour and a half, can't eat because you got a pooch in the stomach. You know about that. And so I'm in there having my water, rubbing my feet, 15 shows a week. It's a lot to do. And that's when we were wearing, you know what I mean? And I hear this knock at the door. I thought, oh, Susan, be kind, but can't they read, you know? Do not disturb. Open the door, and there's Lucy. And she's got that graveled voice. You all know that graveled voice. And she said, can I come in? I go, yes, ma'am. Oh, Miss Ball. Oh, drop the Mrs. Ball. It's Lucy. I mean, just like that. You know? And she said, I came in to talk to you. And she was doing Bob Hope. Stage 4. We had stage 4 all the time, and they were across the hall. Midnight specials over here. And Freddie Prinze Jr. was over there doing something. Chico and the Men. Okay, so she said, you know, when I was dancing, I had to kick as high as the other 11 girls, I think it was. She said, when you go out there, Missy, you don't have to kick higher than anyone. You just do what you want to do. She says, remember Loretta Young when she'd come out? And I said, yes, ma'am. I dropped the ma'am. It's Lucy. Yes, Lucy. And just go out and do what you want. And that's when I started going out and doing the twirl, because of Lucy. Lucy said, take control over it, just one of you. So that's Lucy. Lucy did that for me.
Wow. You mentioned the marriage to Dick Ebersol, and this was during the Saturday Night Live years. So any memories on behind the scenes goings on from that show?
Nothing we can talk about.
We can talk about whatever. It's up to you to talk about it or not. But
no, I think that if I had Belushi here, I'd feel better talking about it, or if I had Gilda here. What talent. And Gilda was such talent, wasn't she? Yes. And Gene Wilder. Oh my gosh, look at what we've gone through, kids. Look at the people we've met and the talent we've had.
Extraordinary. No, they influenced my life in a huge way, because I experienced Saturday Night Live at a very young age, when I don't know, maybe was too young to be watching it, but I did. And those guys were absolutely incredible. Terrible losses for us. Terrible losses.
Would you say terrible what?
I said terrible losses for us.
Oh yeah, but at least we had them. Yeah. See, that's where I go. It's like when Rock got AIDS, it was, Rock's got AIDS, and I said, hey, at least we had Rock, So it's like when you lose somebody you love, at least you had them. Mm-hmm. And that's how I have to look at them, because there's so many passings so fast. It's not just age or COVID. It's time that people realize that we're just occupying Earth for a while. We're not here for long. But going back to the happy side of the now, I really believe that, like, for example, the two of you doing this show, you make people feel good. You educate them. You make them feel good. You get some history and little tidbits maybe that other people wouldn't get. So the two of you, my hat's off to you. This is good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking me to come and do it.
No, we enjoy it, but believe me, and it's great to be able to talk to people like you, who have had, done so much in the business. It's like, it's so rich. Yeah. It's just it's lovely. So thanks for sharing your stories with us, and please continue.
Thank you. Where do you all live? Where do you live?
Florida.
You're in Florida. What part of Florida?
I'm in Central Florida, and Jonathan's in, like, what do you call it? Southeast? Yeah, South Florida. Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Well, you had one, I would like to talk about, you had one story which I found unbelievable with Belushi. I don't know if you would mind not telling, if you wouldn't mind telling us there, because I would love people to hear this from your mouth. He was at your house and you took him to a diner.
Oh, okay. All right, here we go. Dick went to bed because Dick had to get up early. So Belushi would sit there and have his beer, and he wasn't using at the time, which I was grateful for, because Dick was really concerned for him, and Dick flew him out to be with us. And so about, I don't know what time it was, he said, I'm hungry. I said, okay, well, let's just drive down Beverly Hills and Rodeo, one of those Nate's down there, and we'll have some breakfast. Okay, so I drove down there and checked in, and everyone's kind of looking at Belushi. Hey, Belushi, there's Belushi. And of course, he could care less. He just could care less. Just as nice as could be. I want to eat, So I'm thinking, wow, I guess I brought a camera, because that's when you didn't take pictures really like they do now and all that. And so we're eating, and he has biscuits. I remember exactly, eggs, a strip of bacon, and 2 strips of sausage. And he's talking, and I'm talking, and all of a sudden, he just puts his head down in the food. And I'm thinking, my heart, be still. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I got to call 911, I guess. The paramedics. What do I do? And all of a sudden he lifts his head and he said, gotcha.
That's a great story. That's fantastic. And
yeah.
It shows his character too. It's really.
Oh, he was so fun. He was so fun. And such a talent, great talent. I mean, Lorne Michaels, when they were starting the show together, that's when it was really a show.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that much of it now, but that's just a personal opinion,
I share the same opinion with you, but yes.
You what?
I share the same opinion with you.
Yeah. Well,
now you mentioned you were good friends with Rock Hudson, and I'm a huge fan. Ike as well, and you were with him at the end. What can you tell about your relationship with him, and how was he as a person?
He was quite a man, actually. He's quite a man. His real name is Roy Fitzgerald. His father pumped gas. His mother's name was Catherine. Mark Miller was his secretary. George Nader is the position he took at Universal. George Nader was the star long before you guys were born. Me too. George Nader was my friend. And Mark Miller and George had been together for about 50 years. And here I'm this little girl from Missouri. I didn't know the word homosexuality. I didn't know any of this. I just knew they loved me and I loved them. And so I met Rock through George Nader and Mark Miller. And I said to him, do you like what you do? He says, what's that mean? And I said, do you like movies? He said, pays for my house, Susan. Pays for everything I have, sure. And I'm trying to think of his, I should remember, they've done so many shoddy films on Rock, by the way. Just really, the truth has never come out. By the way, the man that sued him, Mark Christian, a.k.a. McGinnis, I went to court in behalf of Rock, and he died. But what did he die of? Lungs. Lungs. No trace of AIDS ever, not once. And of course, he's the one, and that court case was horrifying. And Rock had asked me to take care of this guy while he was in Israel doing a film. And I said, sure. So I had the Governor Pat Brown, come over for dinner, and Bernice, his wife, and I had Mark there, and Mark Miller and George Nader, and we took care of Mark Christian because Rock asked us to. And they have not given proper how can I say, words or identification to Rock Hudson's life at all. Mm-mm. But that's okay. It's always got to be about the guys and the sex. Rock Hudson was a lot more than guys and sex. He was a great man. He really was. And he loved to play games. He loved games. The guys, we'd all play games, Jaja would come by, or Elizabeth. That was a training in itself for me. I'd watch them and think, I'm going to see what they do, because I thought maybe you're supposed to act a certain way, I didn't know they just liked you for yourself.
He came across, to me at least, he came across as very warm and friendly, but that's how he came across when I see him in interviews. When I saw him,
Oh no, he was, what you see is what you get. The only thing is that Harry Wilson, that's the guy's name. He wanted him to get married, so he took his secretary Phyllis, and he had Rock marry him to cover up for his being a gay guy, because Rock could never come out then and say he was gay, because it was Doris Day and he had all this romance. It would have ruined his career,
Yeah, oh sure.
So, and he wasn't the only one. We have several, Terrible you can't be who you are. It's important. God wants you to be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now. God knows who you are. So who are you trying? What? So anyway, I'm up at the house. Mark Miller and George Nader calls me and said, can you come over? And we did. And they had flown him to France, Rock, I'm speaking, to get another opinion about AIDS. It's a long story, but I'll really cut to the fact that just getting in the house, the press outside was, horrendous. And nobody came to the house. No, nobody came. James the cook went to work for Frank Sinatra in Palm Springs. And the lady that was writing the book had a 6-year-old son and didn't want to be in the house because we didn't know if AIDS was transmitted even with the phone. Phones didn't ring. Didn't ring. I mean, it was that. So I'd go dial Rock just so he could hear the phone because it was so silent. People were so scared of this thing called AIDS. I even can't compare it with COVID. Can't compare it.
No.
But I can't compare leprosy with AIDS either.
Yeah.
So it all has its own course. But Rock said, I said to Roy, I said, Roy, listen, I'm sitting on the bed. I said, Roy, let me ask you a question. He said, yeah. I said, if you could have changed, I'm a chaplain. I work with anybody, everybody. I said, if you could have changed anything about your life, what would it have been? And he said, I would have always had 2 bathrooms. Funny to me.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny. So I said, now come on, can you get serious? And he was emaciated, there was not much there. This is after the incident with Doris Day, And I said, were you raised anything? Any particular religion or anything? All we've ever done is laugh, play games, and drink. I mean, talk to me. And he said, I was raised a Roman Catholic. I said, you were? He said, yeah. I said, oh. So would you want me to call a priest? He said, yes, I would. Oh. So I called 2. They wouldn't come. But that didn't stop us. That just means work harder, girl. And so I got to another priest. His name is Father Terry Sweeney. He was the consultant on Thornburgs with Richard Chamberlain, which Vatican, I don't think, liked him doing that. Anyway, he said, Susan, I'm at St. John's. It'll take about 20 minutes. I'll be there. He was there in 20 minutes. I gave him all those things that the Catholics do on your deathbed. Brought him to Christ. He said, oh, I just haven't ever wanted to change my ways, Father, But yeah, I believe in Jesus. And he was already, I didn't even know he was Roman Catholic. I didn't know anything. What I try to do is find out who the person is, call what they want, who they want, because I want to be respectful to that person, whoever it is. And I did my chaplainship in Houston when I left Wheel of Fortune. And it was really exciting to know that he had belief. That was fabulous, and that we had a priest that could come and do it. Yeah, that's what it's about. So that's my story on Rock. Yeah, babe, what'd you say?
You also with Sammy Davis Jr. for the end of his life as well.
Yeah, I have a lot of those. I get people when they're down and out. They don't need me when they're on top. Sammy was over at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, and Altavish, his wife, and I were friendly. And it was Sammy that introduced me to Dan Enright from Barry Enright. So I owed Sammy a lot. And Sammy said to me when I went to see him at Cedars, he said, I don't want to be here. And Cedars is a great hospital, don't misunderstand me. They saved my mother's life. So he said, I want to go home. I want to be in my bed. I told the doctor, because I'm the bad guy, you see. You always have a good guy and a bad guy. Then you had the wife and the people that are in tears and panicked and fearful, So you got to put out that fire. Anyway, I said, Sammy will be going home. Who said so? I said, Sammy. He's the patient. Well, he can't go home yet. I said, but he is going home. Yes, he is. And he did. And he died at home. Yeah. Yeah. Sammy was so loved. Do you know here in Vegas, they shut the lights for him? Nobody asked for 1 minute because they love Sammy Davis so much.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Sinatra had to ask, not Sammy. Sinatra's family asked the people here, what we call the little people and the big people. They did that for Sammy.
Wow. He was a great entertainer, great talent.
Yeah.
A couple things I wanted to ask you about. You were very involved with Chabad, and that was amazing to me. I mean, I go to the Chabad here, and they're way more religious than me. And so, how did you get involved with them?
I have to feel that maybe you're a little boobala. Are you a boobala?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me tell you what happened. Being a follower of Christ, we would not have a New Testament if we didn't have an Old Testament. You follow? First, it's the Old Testament, folks. Then it's the New Testament. But if you don't have the Old Testament, Faguna, you don't have anything. Okay? So I wanted to learn more about Judaism. And so I signed up to do my internship under Dr. Sue Oppenheimer over there in Westwood, Chabad, Hasidic house. And then I got so involved with those wonderful rabbis. They're so wonderful. And so I became vice president of the Chabad.
Wow.
And I was able to raise a minimum of $40,000 a night at my penthouse. I was in the chips then, you understand. And the rabbis taught me so much. And they were on the phone with Danny, and they said to Danny, we know we're going to give the charity dinner that your Susan's going to do it, you know, at your home, and you're going to have kosher food, but we want you to cover that. I have a Russian lady there, beautiful, artistic, and her boobs show just a little, and they said, but you have to cover that picture. And of course, Danny's speaking Hebrew, so I don't know what they're saying, but I kind of have an idea, a little bit of the flow. And then he said, and by the way, the cross, you have to cover the cross. And Danny says, I'm not going to ask her to cover her cross. There's no way. I have to live with her. So we didn't cover the cross, but we covered the Russian lady, you know. And I know that I asked a couple politicians that night to come, and we raised some good money. And Chabad is absolutely fabulous. Insanity. I talk about rigid, but see, Farrah Fawcett was having a tennis thing. I'm trying to think of the man down in Palm Springs. So Dick Van Patten said, Susan, I'll bring all the pretzels they gave us and the chips and everything, and we'll give it to Chabad. I said, fabulous, Dickie. Thank you. So Dickie comes by and he has all this, the chips and all that to give. And so he gives me boxes, and I take it into one of the rabbis. He says, oh, it's not kosher. We can't have it. And he puts it in the trash. So I said, I know there's something for me to learn here. But what is it? Because the next rabbi that comes out says, Susan, you look a little disheartened. I said, well, I am. I don't want to be rude, sir, but, you know, we have people that really need this food, and it's given to us, and it's not kosher. And he says, oh, well, there's no problem. He goes over, takes it out of the trash, puts it in the back of his car, and we drive it to Santa Monica and give it to the homeless people. So that's not from Chabad. It's a gift that we're giving to the homeless people. It just took a detour here. That's all. No problem. I mean, you know, those rabbis are so smart. It's like the nuns at the convent. They're so smart because they think differently than we do, because we're so into the world, you know, the distractions. I mean, how many Mickey Mouses can you have in an office in one day?
Oh, well, at least one more.
Yeah. I'll see if I can find one. Hey, listen, I'll tell you what I found, though. I'll tell you what I found. Actually, Tammy found it. I found a toaster. You put the bread in, it comes out with Mickey Mouse on the bread.
I think I've seen that. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's so cute. It's so cute.
Yeah, and we have a Mickey Mouse waffle iron also. So
okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Well,
Yeah.
You saw in the book, and you mentioned now your relationship with Dan Enright. You describe him as the love of your life there, and he seems very generous. I mean, like, I would like if you don't mind talking about, because we hear like one thing, everyone knows Dan Enright associated with the quiz show, and you explain all that in the book, and it's fascinating to me, and that's not what the media portrays at all, of course.
No.
Right.
You're
He
good.
was kind of set up. I mean, really.
Well, actually, I'll tell you the story if you wish. You're good. You're a good researcher. You're good. You're going deep. That's good. That's good. I like that. Okay, so where should we start? Well, I was like 6 years old when he was indicted.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the age difference. Age has never meant anything to me. I've gone with the very young. I've gone with the old. Doesn't mean anything to me. It's the person.
So 21, right? That's
no. Yes, it's 21. So sorry. It is 21. People always come up with $64,000 question. That was the first one.
Mhm.
But 21, where should we start here? In those days, we didn't have rules and compliances. Okay, guys? No rules and compliances. So there were no laws to break because we didn't have any rules and compliances. However, we did have, we know you're not supposed to cheat, but they didn't call it cheat then. They called it entertainment, and they called it beefing it up, and they called it all these names that I'm sharing with you right now. They had a booth, and what he did is he stopped the air conditioning in the booth so the person would sweat. He used a uniform with one man to get the sympathy of the world. It was called show business, folks. He had a very popular, good-looking man who name fails me at this moment, but he was very honorable, and his father was a judge or something. And he had him take a dive. He knew the answer.
That's Herb Stempel.
I didn't.
Herb Stempel.
Oh, Stapleton was paid $100,000 to keep his mouth shut.
Stempel, right?
$100,000.
Right.
And but he's the one took the money, of course, and then told everybody, I was paid to keep my mouth shut. Here's the money. I'm keeping it, and this is what happened. And so, in other words, if you and I got in the booth, Dan gave you the secret, the name, and didn't give it to Ike. So even though there were no rules and compliance, that is called cheating. Even though there's no rules, we want you to win because you got the uniform or you got the whatever. And so he was indicted, but he never indicted Jack Barry, who was in on the show, Joyce Brothers, John Glenn. None of those were ever indicted because Danny took the fall for all of them. Mm-hmm. He was a real mensch. Wow. Really was.
And that's not what they show you in the movie, of course.
I wrote, okay, so you saw where I wrote to Robert Redford.
Right, yeah. You could.
And I asked him to be, to tell the truth at least. I mean, the man took the fall. In fact, we went over and flew into Washington, D.C. and had an interview on the 25th anniversary with Larry King. Larry was covering it. And Dan said, I gave the guy the answer, true, but we didn't have rules and compliances. This was like make up the show and deliver it, He said it cost him. His children turned on him. He couldn't get a job for 15 years. Finally, Screen Gems gave him a job. He went back to work with Jack. He had a very hard time. I was very sympathetic to the fact that he stood up for so many people and never brought them in out. because it would have hurt their names. So when Joyce Brothers would call and talk to Dick, I mean, he didn't want any of them to think that they were doing something wrong. He made the decision. He paid her to keep his mouth shut. And then, of course, as I said, and it's deeper than that, but that's kind of did I give you enough, do you think?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are you doing now? I mean, where can people find you now? Are you still involved in all these, traveling and helping out people now?
Well, I should be in Kentucky today. As you know, we got hit bad. Mm-hmm. The first outing that I had been going to was Columbine. That was the first one I went to. I didn't know for sure what I could do to help, but you can always, if you want to help and your motive is to help, you can always help if your motive is to help. And we've had so many school killings since then. But in answer to your question, I should be in Kentucky, but I'm not. I have people there in California that are making their journey with cancer. So I'm going to go in and see them for a couple of days because I feel badly not saying toodaloo,
Mm-hmm.
Toodaloo.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I speak at churches, synagogues. Rosie and I did a speaking at the synagogue because we represent Israel, Right. So I don't know why more people in Hollywood don't represent Israel. I don't get it, but that's okay. I'm trying to learn. And I starting on. What'd you say, please?
I lived there for 2 years.
Where?
In Israel.
Where did you live?
In Jerusalem for 2 years.
My heart be still. Yeah.
So thank you so much. I mean, it's been a real treat for us to get to talk with you and hear all your stories. And you've just been fascinating. The book is incredible. I really recommend everyone read it. Stop the wheel. I want to get off.
We'll be in touch with you, and I want to wish you both. You're such beautiful people. I'm so grateful when I meet beautiful people. You're both just beautiful. I know it's gummy and corny, but I'm going to say it anyway. I just wish for you everything your heart desires. Truly.
Oh, that's truly lovely. Thank you, and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday.
Bless your hearts. Thanks for your time. More to follow.
Yes, absolutely. Again, this has been Pop Culture Retro on behalf of myself and Ike Eisenmann, and we thank Susan Stafford. It's been great, and please subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.